What's up? What's up, guys? Happy Monday. Happy Monday. We have a very special guest in the house. Before I invite her on and introduce her, I want to say, no worries. Imagine how it would be to live a whole day without worries. Just think how free it would make you feel and how effective it would enable you to be. Is this such a thing? Is it possible? Not only is it possible, it can be very easy to do when you decide to do it because worry is nothing more than a response that you choose. There are plenty of others, much more empowering responses. No matter what the situation may be, there is never any requirement for you to worry about it. Think about it, and you'll also see that, there is never really anything of value that is accomplished by worry. So, what you decide to replace every negative worry with a positive action, it would instantly and dramatically change your day. And if you kept at it for weeks or months, even, the results would be positively astounding. And all it takes is the desire to do it. Replace worry with action, and you'll go above and beyond anything you could have previously imagined. But you say, Deanie, my life is so chaotic, you have no idea. Worry is just a central part of it. I don't even think about it. It's like auto worry, right? Listen, so is my life. My life is chaotic and hectic. I have 6 children and a lot of things that I do in my businesses. So yeah, I understand how chaotic life be life and sometimes and things happen and you know, but you can also think about gratitude. Like you woke up today. Like some of us have the use of our arms and legs and mind. That's pretty incredible every single day. So I kind of shift my focus on the things that I can control. I mean, I can't control waking up, but I'm thankful that I do. And that kind of alleviates my worry because that gives me a chance to make it right or to do it better or to go harder, whatever tomorrow may bring for me, or even today or this moment may bring for me. So, my name is Coach Deanie, and change is possible. Are you ready? All right, our interviews are designed to go beyond the music, news, books, art, acting, films, technology, education, entrepreneurship, entertainment, spirituality, and sometimes even past that thing that we call the ego. Our interviews are designed to go behind the scenes and into the minds of these incredible human beings. The ones who are out there giving it their all for me, for you, and for the world. Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to VRL or Vigilantes Radio Live. I want to introduce our next guest. Some individuals walk through life merely just existing, but others ignite the flames of transformation, not just for themselves, but for those they touch. And our next guest, Portia Chigariro, is one of those luminous souls from the heart of Zimbabwe to the spiritual realms of deep healing. She has turned personal tragedy into a beacon of light for others. A gifted psychic medium, energy healer, and guide, Portia helps souls break free from the past and embrace the magic of the present. Her story is one of resilience, love, and boundless wisdom. With that, let's say welcome, friend, to Portia. Hello, 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 hello.
Hi,
What's going on?
Dini. Hello. Hello. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. We are excited that you're here with us.
Thank
Uh,
you. What an exciting introduction. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Portia, before we dive in, what has been on your heart and mind lately?
What has been on my heart and mind lately? It's a funny thing. Um, since I'm a coach, you'll probably laugh at this one, that I'm changing,
Hmm.
that I'm having to adapt, that you never quite arrive, actually. Healing is a process. Healing is something that you continue to go through and you learn new things as you go. And what have I been thinking about lately is just how much I've grown, I think. Just how peaceful I feel, how calm I feel. Um, yeah, that's it.
Man,
Yeah,
you know what, Portia? I would rather have a coach that is changing and that changes because
yeah.
you really don't ever reach the top of the mountain per se, and if you did, what is the next challenge?
Hmm.
What is the next plateau? What is the next thing you're climbing? So I would rather for someone who's coaching me to also be changing because as I grow, if I outgrow my coach, what would I need a coach for?
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
So I love that. I love that.
Yeah,
All
yeah,
right, all right.
yeah.
So, from adversity to awakening, you've lived through immense personal loss, a cultural shift, and internal battles with PTSD.
Hmm.
Can you take us back to a defining moment when you realized you had to take control of your healing journey? And if you want to go even further before that, just to give a little context about your beginnings in your life, please feel free to share.
Yes. Um, when I was listening to your introduction, it struck a chord with me. You have six children.
I do.
Well, yeah, I grew up in a family of six. So I'm number four. So I understand that you are quite in it yourself.
Yeah.
Um, so basically, I was born in Zimbabwe, the fourth child out of six. My parents were both in the war for liberation because we had apartheid in our country. It wasn't just in South Africa, we had it in Zimbabwe as well. So I was born 4 years after the end of the war, and it was still quite difficult at that time. Still a lot of things that were not quite right. People were still displaced. There was a lot of turmoil and stuff going on, but my parents managed somehow through all of that to educate themselves and to buy a farm. So we grew up on a farm outside the city, and we all went to boarding school. So we were away from home most of the time. And at school, we were uh, kind of thrown into the deep end because we were the only black kids. My brother and I were the only black kids in the school of 300 white children. And that was really tough. We were there for a week at a time. So we started at the ages of 5 until the age of 12. And so that was already quite uh, something to sort of to get used to, and to it was confrontational, really. There were a lot of things that we had to go through, proving ourselves and constantly working harder. We basically all turned into overachievers, I think, which is one of the first trauma signs, I would say. And so from there, I went through school, and at the age of 13, my mom died rather tragically. Her and my father had a difficult relationship, I would say. Without going too much into detail, it was not very nurturing, for my mother. She was quite depressed, and I think she just gave up. So she went to visit her mother one day after dropping us at school, and then she just never came home. She was just gone. And so that was really, really, I think, a moment where I think everything for me just sort of, my whole world just fell apart, because she was my foundation. She was my sense of existence, my source of non-conditional love. She guided me, she taught me things, she protected me. And then I just found myself in a world that I felt was just full of monsters and things that I didn't understand, and people I couldn't communicate with. And I started to spiral from that point. I started to fail at school. I wasn't able to pay attention in class. And eventually that turned into me leaving my father's house when I was 17. And I started living on my own, and I created a business selling secondhand things, an antique store. I used to sell little knickknacks and things. People would bring me things from their garages, and I would sell them, and it was going pretty well. But still, it was a very, very sort of difficult existence. I was on my own with no real family around me. Everybody was sort of dispersed. My sisters left. My brother also left. My younger sister, my younger brother were too small to kind of spend time with me or to be around me. And my dad wouldn't really let us see each other because I had left. So that created a huge sort of sense of loneliness for me. And I found myself caught up a little bit in a world of, sort of teenage mischief, a little bit of drugs and alcohol and that kind of thing. And then I got pregnant. And I decided to keep the child. So my son turned 20 last week. I'm really proud of him. And I had my baby, and then I moved to South Africa, and there I met my now ex-husband, who's a Belgian, and we got married. And then I moved to Belgium, and we had 2 more children, 2 girls, who are now 13 and 10. And the marriage didn't work out, and now we're divorced. So through all of that, I think at some point, maybe 5 years ago, I just woke up one day. It's really difficult to explain. I don't really think that it was a moment as per se or anything in particular. I think all these things, what happens is it just sort of builds up. Mm-hmm. And one day I just woke up and I just didn't want to live anymore. I just looked around and I didn't recognize myself. I couldn't breathe. I was just like shrinking, my soul. I was just wishing the earth would open up and eat me up, I just wanted to disappear. And the only thing that kept me going was my kids. Mm-hmm. And in that moment, I said to myself, okay, so what are you going to do? Are you going to stay in your marriage? Are you going to keep going on like this? What does your life look like? And the thought of my future made me want to not live anymore. So I had to take the decision to end my marriage and to start taking steps to heal myself and to go really down to the core of why I was feeling that way, and to really start dissecting all the little things that had happened to me since I was a child, because I was also sexually abused since between the ages of 5 and 10 by a close family relative. This is also something we don't talk a lot about in, I don't know about Black culture in America, but I know that in Africa it's kept a secret. These are things that we don't discuss and rarely condemn. The person will be welcomed into the family and we won't discuss it. So there were lots of things like that then that I had to delve into and to really go deeper and to start to really try to understand what was going on with me, why I was feeling this way, and why I just suddenly was feeling like I didn't want to live anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you began to take these things that were making you feel this way and internalize them, but also deal with them because you had to move forward because you had 3 children.
Mhm.
Um, what was your first step in
Well,
taking
my first step really, um, I think it's very important to be honest about these things. It's not
Mhm,
something that you would say, okay, I've got a problem. How am I going to fix it? Or like, this is the solution. It didn't work that way. Actually, I went through abusing myself, drinking. I've never been any kind of addict, but I mean, I could easily drink a bottle of wine by myself when I didn't have my kids because I didn't want to feel anything. So I went through this sort of numbing process, where I became aware of the problem, but then I didn't want to deal with it. So I would numb myself. And I did that for about a year, I think, getting into relationships where I could focus on somebody else, or friendships where I would just be focusing on other people and on myself, or drink myself to sleep whenever I could. If I didn't have to get up the next day, all those kinds of things that sort of like coping mechanisms. And I think that was the first stage. It was the easiest, the sort of
mhm,
disassociating. The first stages is trying to disassociate from the issue, which is what I went through, until I realized that actually it's not working. Eventually, all that stops to work. You know, at some
mhm.
point, it stopped working.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So after that, what did you do?
Well, when it stopped working, I had to just face it. Then I had a conversation with myself and I said, okay, so what are we going to do? And I said, well, I'm going to ask for help. So I started going for therapy. I started trying to vocalize what I was feeling and what I had experienced, and speaking to a therapist helped me because it helped me to see that actually there's nothing wrong with me, that what was done to me was wrong, and that it's not something that I should hide. It's not something that I should be protecting anybody about, and that there are a lot of experiences that I've lived that I should not have lived. And so it helped me to sort of see it from the outside looking in, to be less overwhelmed by it. So that helped me a lot. I use some plant medicines. I don't know if you've heard of ayahuasca.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah. That really, really, really helped me. That really helped me. But that's something that I did after about 2 years, I think, about 2 years of therapy and trying to live consciously and actually being aware of what my issues were. The plant medicine really, really helped me because that sort of helped me to look at the problems um, without feeling the pain as per se, just to be an observer of the problem and not to associate myself with it. So I was able to do that with the death of my mother, with my relationship with my father, which is still quite strained now. I mean, we don't speak at the moment. It's not something that I think will last forever. But for the moment, I think it's just divine intervention. It's just the way that it is.
Mhm.
We cannot be in each other's lives at this point.
Yeah, yeah, like a volatile mix. I got
Yeah.
you. Yeah. Ayahuasca, I've had a few practitioners on this show, coaches who actually have retreats, and I
Mhm.
always make this joke because they always tell me the most graphic part about it, with everyone in the hut just boo-booing on themselves. So
Oh my gosh. Well, okay. There are some things, yes. I mean, one thing I must tell you is I wouldn't
Mhm.
recommend doing it in a huge group of people because it is true. There are some people who have, it brings out what it needs to bring out. That's what I can
Right.
say. So, if you're going to do it, I think try to do it in smaller groups, like 2 or 3 people. Even if you can do it on your own with a therapist, I think I would recommend that. But I mean, I just cried, I cried a lot.
Yeah.
It brings out, it goes where it needs to go. So it does do like physical cleansing as well,
Yeah.
because some people have blockages in their body physically, which is also part of the energy healing. One of the techniques that I do, because it's not only, emotional blockages are expressed through tears. And when you move your body, when your muscles tense up, these are all blockages. And so, yeah, it can be a bit graphic.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, I had a friend who went, not too long ago, and, he said his experience was pretty pleasant.
yeah,
Uh, he said he cried the entire time too.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, it was such an amazing experience, a really beautiful, beautiful experience, because I think I had shut myself down from thinking about my mother because it was so painful,
Mhm.
um, that I didn't allow myself to see her as a woman, to see her as somebody who may have been happy in her life at some point, to experience her feminine energy. And when I had the experience with ayahuasca, I was able to connect to just the feminine side of her, the young woman in her, the woman who was happily married, I suppose, at some point. I mean, it would be presumptuous of me to assume she was unhappy the whole time. I'm sure they must have been happy at some point, um, or on occasion. But it helped me to make peace with that she was not just suffering all the time, and that I could actually connect to my mother without the suffering.
Yes.
Yeah.
So as someone who has walked this journey before, losing a mother at a young age is a
Mhm.
heartbreak, if you can fathom. What were some of the rawest emotions you had to confront? And now that you are who you are, how did they shape the way that you help others through grief?
Definitely suicide, I think, was one of them, constant thoughts of suicide. But, I think I've always been kind of not necessarily, I'm not suicidal. I've never been suicidal, but it's sort of the trying to bargain with God.
Mm,
And then just wanting to die, not wanting to die, and then sort of wanting to bargain with God, and then really sort of pushing the limits of how much I can hurt myself, and maybe God will save me, or let me see how far I can go with just letting go and see what God does. I think the most extreme emotion I had was cursing God,
mm,
literally. Like I just uh, was so angry about life and everything that I had experienced, that I just completely lost faith in myself, in not necessarily all things good, but in goodness, in light. And for me, that was, I think, the most extreme feeling that I could have experienced, because I live by that. I've always been somebody who's generally very happy. Um, I love to laugh. Joy is a part of my existence. And I think sadness, just this constant melancholic kind of feeling, for me was just giving up on life was, I think, the most extreme feeling I've had.
yeah.
Yeah.
You know, when you're going through the deepest pains in life as possible, you ask that question, why me, or why did this happen to me? And
Mm.
sometimes when you're searching for the answer, you come up with, oh, it must be God. It must be God's fault this happened. I
Yeah.
put all this on God. This is
Hmm.
God's mess. He didn't look out for me. And I know that because I walked that same journey trying to find, I used to be this way and now I'm this way. What
Hmm.
happened? Oh,
Hmm.
God happened. That's what happened. God did not step in on my head. And I go to war with God, turn my
Hmm.
back on him, and
Hmm.
you know, um and understand that hurt, frustrations can cause that answer to come to say, oh yeah, I'm gonna blame the highest power. for my situation. And, it's just not true when you come back to the answer. I'm the son of a evangelist. I've been in church my entire life. I
Mhm.
volunteer in a church today, but still there were points in my path was like, yo, I'm supposed to be protected from all this.
Yeah.
What happened? You
Hmm.
know?
Hmm. Yeah, and I think it's also the way that I was raised as well, because and my mom was also very Christian, and we prayed a lot, and everything seemed okay. And when my mom was alive, I really felt this protection, and everything seemed rosy and just better. It wasn't perfect, but it was better. And then when I was on my own, I really, really, really believed that it was God's fault. And I really took it very, very personally for a couple of years. And I hurt myself quite a lot in that period of time, not physically, but emotionally, you know. Um, and that's when I started to realize that actually the way that I had been taught about Christianity and God and the Bible was in a way that actually took my own power away from me. And when I started to realize that actually it's not God, it's me, I started to make the connections between um, what the Bible really is to me and what God really means to me, you know? And I think that's where I started to, um, my psychic abilities and mediumship started to slowly come back because I started to turn inwards and to ask myself and to look inside and say, but who am I? What role do I play in this life? And uh, is God really out there or is he in here? And I think that's when it really started to turn around for me. And that's how I help people now, is to help them to understand that it's not about externalizing things in your life. It's about looking inside, all the love and the things that we're looking for out there, all the recognition, even the resolving pain and everything that we've lived, it starts here inside you. And it's not about pointing a finger and saying it's this person's fault or that one's fault or it's God or, you know,
Mhm.
yeah.
Indeed, indeed. So growing up in Zimbabwe after its liberation must have been a unique experience. How did witnessing a nation's rebirth influence your perspective on perseverance and emotional healing?
You know what? I have to say though, my father is an extraordinary man. He's an extraordinary human being. He and my mother too. My mother was too. They were not allowed to go to school, so they had to be educated by the missionaries, by the church, because they were also. What happened was uh, during apartheid, they put all the people of color in reserves, so outside the city and in certain neighborhoods, and you had to live there. And they had a curfew where they could only do blue collar jobs. So they couldn't work in offices, they couldn't go to school, they couldn't be educated or do anything that would lift them up. They had to work in the fields and do all those kinds of things. And this is until 1980. Um, and so the only people that were allowed to give them an education were the missionaries. And my father went and learned English, mathematics, and studied with them. And then from there, he joined the Rhodesian police because they needed to hire indigenous people to police themselves. That's kind of how it used to work. And then from there, he started as a coffee boy in an insurance company in the 70s. And he worked his way up until he became the CEO of one of the biggest insurance companies in Africa. And this he did through just tunnel vision, the amazing power of manifestation, which he has, and his belief in himself. And watching my parents, my mom did the same thing as well. She was a professor at the university in Kenya and in Tanzania. And watching them get through all these things that other people in the family, because there were other family members and who were constantly sort of feeding us the story of we're not allowed to do this, we can't do this, and they called him Sam. My dad is Sam, and they're like, how do you do this, Sam? How do you manage to do this? And like, how did you get to where you are? Watching my parents create this life for themselves, in complete opposition to what they were being told they could do and or allowed to do, really, really made me a go-getter. It really made me somebody who dreams big. It really made me see that your skin color is nothing but a limitation that you put on yourself. That you can do anything that you put your mind to. It's just that if you give in to negativity and criticisms and what people tell you that you are, then that's what you'll become.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I was called names all the time. Every time something got stolen at school, it was me or my brother. Every time there was it was always, always, always like that. And I remember at some point, I mean, I don't know exactly when, but at some point I must have decided to myself as a kid, I'm either going to sink or I'm going to swim. So I just became the best in class at all subjects. I was the best in athletics. I was the best in all sports. And that was it. And my life was good. I figured that out pretty young. And I just continued like that for quite a while. And so it made me strong. It made me really, really strong. And so today, in my life today, I'd have to be honest that I don't, I'm not going to deny racism. Of course it exists, but I don't let it stop me.
Yeah.
I don't live my life according to the principles of the color of my skin or what people tell me I'm allowed to do or where I've been raised or where I think I'm going. I just decide this is what I want to do and I go for it.
Indeed, indeed.
Yeah.
So the calling of a medium. Some people discover their purpose gradually, while others experience a defining revelation.
Mm-hmm.
Was there a single moment when you knew you had psychic abilities, or did it unfold over time?
It started when I was really small, and I don't remember this, but my parents have been telling me since I was young. When I was 4 years old, we were driving in the car, and I woke up and said to my dad, "You're going to perish," in our native language, which I didn't even know the words at that time. So I was channeling some kind of message, but through our native language, which is really odd for a 4-year-old.
Hmm.
And so they just looked at me and thought, oh, well, okay. And 2 weeks later, my dad nearly had a fatal accident. He was crossing the street and the car hit a motorbike and hit him and he nearly died.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And then my mom started to notice. My dad was very aware of it and he says, okay, well, they remembered that I had told him these things. And from then on, I would quite often just say little things sort of in passing, just like not really thinking about it, just say something. And so they've been telling me this since I was a child that I had, that I would do these things, that I would say these things. And I think at some point, because in my culture, it's something that's feared. And also because, our culture has been sort of diluted as well by Christianity. And so it's looked down upon. It's kind of, people would say it's the devil.
Mhm.
So, so, I think I shut it down a bit because I was afraid of being judged and being treated differently. And I didn't really know what was happening, to me. But I would have experiences where I would see people in my room, or I would experience presences in the house, or just people with strange or bizarre intentions would distance themselves from me in the family for some reason. And my parents were always watching and they would always notice and they would always point this out. Like I had an uncle who was into drug dealing and things. For some reason, I don't know, he got into some trouble and he came to visit my dad on a particular day when he was in trouble, being chased by some guys he owed money or something like that. And he came into the house and he tried to shake my hand. And he took my hand and he shook my hand and I kind of pulled my hand away and I started wiping my hand away,
Mm.
And I was telling my dad, no, like his energy, like he's dirty, there's something wrong with him. And it sort of came out a few days later that this is what was going on, with him. So they were like, it's a very subtle thing. It started with very subtle messages, nothing direct, just sort of feelings and little words and messages. And then it went away for a long time. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's because you put it away, out of fear of, the country was, Christian based, and, sometimes that's shone upon when it's not proceed from, the powers that Christians think it comes from.
Yes, but then I think there was also the sexual abuse that
Mhm.
I experienced, because what happens um, with these things is that you have to be connected to your body. And when you go through physical or emotional or mental or sexual abuse, you disassociate from your body. And so you're no longer in connection with your body. And I think this, when this began, I think I started to disassociate from myself. And so I wasn't in my, like, even listening to myself anymore. That's another thing I realized when I decided that I wanted a divorce, is that I realized that I hadn't actually felt my heartbeat in like 10, 15 years, like my own
Mm.
heartbeat, like listened to my own heart. I felt like I've been living my life holding my breath.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I realized that I've been actually blocking God, because I think that's how God speaks to me. I think this is how the universe communicates to me, through your body. And if you're not connected to your body, you don't hear God.
Mm-hmm. So when did you awaken the spiritual aspect that you used to have?
It started to come back a lot more just before COVID. Um, I think like two months before COVID, I started to have a lot of dreams, and I had a like sort of an eczema that showed up on my skin. Yes, that's something I used to have when I was a child as well. I was a very sensitive child. I wasn't allowed to play in the grass. I wasn't allowed to take a cold shower because my skin would erupt in like a rash. And when these abilities went away, that stopped, and now it's come back again. And so my skin has like it reacts, and I have like a bit of an eczema sometimes. It doesn't show, but it itches a lot, and I have to actually take antihistamines. It's something I'm trying to work out.
Yeah.
I haven't quite figured it out, but as soon as that began, I started to have like vivid dreams and to receive premonitions in my dreams, and just sort of a sense of knowing about certain things that I could not explain. And that's been, yeah, so since 2020, it slowly started to come back. And I sensed it sort of coming back, but it's been a process of really getting to the level where now I'm able to do readings for people. That's only been about a year that I've been doing that. It took me some time because I had to clean up my own emotions. I had to clean up my body. I had a lot of my own things to heal, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So moving to a new country is an adjustment,
Hmm.
even more so when carrying past trauma. How did you transition to Belgium, or how did the transition to Belgium impact your spiritual expansion? And were there any unexpected challenges?
Yeah, I thought it was going to be easy. I thought, well, this is how we all think. We think, oh, I'm going to Europe. It's everything is perfect.
Yeah.
Everything works. There's lights, buses, transport. There's none of the struggle that we have to go through every day in Africa with certain things. And in actual fact, I got here, and the most amazing thing that I was not expecting was the lack of human connection. I think that was the most difficult thing for me, because it's a very, very individualist society. So people keep to themselves, and nobody's really, people don't necessarily connect on the same level that we do, with community and really asking, how are you and how are you doing and how are things going for you, and actually sit down and listen. So that was really, really hard for me. I had to adapt to that. And also, I didn't speak the language because they speak French here. So I had to learn French. So I couldn't go to church. I couldn't find social groups. I had a son. So I was at home with my son, or taking him to school and bringing him home. It was really a moment of just calm. Like everything just stopped. My whole life just stopped.
Hmm.
And the strange thing is that, you see, this is why they say be careful what you ask for, because before this happened, I was overwhelmed. I was alone. I needed help. I needed rest. I was exhausted, and I was asking God every day, I need to rest. I need to rest. I need to rest. Can this just stop? And it did. It came immediately.
Hmm.
Within, when I met my ex-husband, we married within 6 months, and I was in Belgium. So it happened immediately, except that it didn't come in the way that I wanted it to. The rest and the quiet came in a foreign country, in a different environment. And then I was starting to feel resentful
Hmm. Yeah.
and a bit lost, and not quite understanding that actually this is what I wanted and this is what I asked for. Was a moment for me to just not have to do anything. So that was difficult. The adjustment there was quite difficult. I mean, now looking back, I can understand that it was necessary, and that's actually what I wanted. But at that time, I was frustrated. It was really, really hard.
Yeah. I can
Yeah.
imagine. All right. For listeners unfamiliar with energy healing,
Mhm.
what's a simple yet powerful technique they can use today to start clearing emotional blockages?
I think I can think of a few really good ones. One is dancing.
Mm.
Okay, I'm going to give you some really accessible ones. No, like crazy, techniques that they have to uh, do classes to learn. Or I'm just going to give you some very simple ones that we already do, that I think people have forgotten, are actually very, very good for clearing your energy. So putting on some loud music, dancing, like really, really dancing with yourself or with your kids or with your wife or your partner, that is really, really good for you. Another one is connecting to nature. So just go outside, leave your phone at home, just walk outside. Try to do that once a week, if possible. And when you get back home after your walk, try to sit still in your body. Just find a quiet place and just sit.
Mhm.
Just close your eyes and just sit, and just feel where the energy goes in your body, because there's always energy moving around in your body, and sort of feel where it goes. And generally, it can move, maybe tingling in your legs, tingling in your arms, and just listen to the emotions that come up. And those emotions are generally things that maybe you've been worrying about, things that you need to work on, or things that you can look at, that you can
Yeah.
observe. Yeah.
All right. All right. Um, so meditation is often misunderstood as
Mhm.
sitting in silence, but you use it as a transformative tool. What's
Mhm.
one meditation practice that has been a game changer for you?
One that has been a real game changer for me is just taking 5 minutes when you're feeling overwhelmed, or it doesn't matter anything that you're feeling, just taking 5 minutes to close your eyes and taking a couple of deep breaths in and holding it and releasing, and then just breathing and listening to the breath coming into your body and releasing it. That really is excellent for focus. It's really excellent for reducing anxiety. It's really, really good as well to generate emotions of love. So, and healing as well. So, for example, if you're needing to feel feelings of love, you can close your eyes and take a few moments and just breathe and just imagine your heart beating, and just send it energy, just quietly in your mind, and just send love to your heart. And this will really bring up feelings of love. Or if your leg hurts, just send some energy to your leg. And this really, really does work. I mean, I've tried it with my kids as well, and it really, really does work.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Alright, and later on before we leave, we'll play a, 5-minute meditation that you did, the one specifically for anxiety. I think it
Great.
goes hand in hand with what I was talking about in the beginning with worrying. I think those go hand in hand, so we'll play that at the end. Um, a lo a lot of people talk about manifesting,
Mhm,
success, love, peace, but a few people do it effectively. You've talked
mhm,
about how you asked God for rest, and He gave it to you almost immediately.
mhm, mhm,
I think sometimes that is a way of manifesting, if your mind is always thinking about something constantly and then your heart connects to that, I believe anything could be manifested in that way. I manifested something that took 10 years,
mhm.
um, but it still happened. I didn't let up. So in your experience, what are the biggest misconceptions about manifestation, and how do you guide people to get it right?
Yeah, that's a good one. I think the biggest misconception is inaction. You know,
Mhm.
a lot of people think that I'm just going to sit in my house and write a list and everything's going to come to me. It doesn't work that way. Okay, you actually have to take inspired action towards your dreams. If you want to be a doctor, you need to go to medical school. You need to, all those things. You actually have to take inspired action to make your dreams come true. You can't just write lists down and expect everything to come to you. So that's one thing. I think inaction is a big misunderstanding. It's not just magic, like just going to happen without you, because the purpose of this life is for you to live it. It's not for you to write lists to the universe and sit in your basement. So I think that's one thing that's really misunderstood. Um, Another thing is that it's some kind of special power that only certain people have, and that I can't do it for some reason, or it's only for lucky people. That's not true. That's really not true. We all have the ability to manifest something that we want. If we start with the right emotion, with the thoughts and the feelings, if you follow the right steps, you can actually create something that you want in your life. This is why we're here, is to create our lives. So it's not just something that, lucky people can do. Anybody can do that.
Indeed.
Yeah.
All right. So trauma isn't always visible.
Mm,
And you're right, in the Black community, uh, trauma, abuse,
hmm.
scars just don't get talked about a lot, you know.
Yeah,
And if you're a male, it gets shunned upon, you know.
exactly. Yeah.
For someone struggling but unsure of where to start, what's the
Mhm.
first step they can take today to begin healing?
Okay, obviously, this is something depending on circumstances and the possibility, your situation. So maybe I'm going to narrow it down to, let's say, people like you and me who don't have existential uh, issues like war and things like that. So we put it to, if it's somebody like you and me, I think the very first thing to do is to get a clear mind. So stop doing things that make you disassociate, that numb you, that keep you out of the present moment. So if you have been drinking or engaging in negative, toxic behavior, or situations that make you feel bad, try to stay away from it. Try to stay clear. And then from there, try to connect with your body. So start to exercise, start to move, because a lot of people don't seem to understand. Trauma actually uh, uh, gets stuck in your body. It's a learned habit. Like it gets stuck in your body and it stays there. So you need to move. So get clear, start to move your body, and step by step, patience. Be patient and kind with yourself, because it's going to take time. Okay, some days you're going to feel good, some days you won't. And this is important to understand. There's no arriving, it's not going to happen overnight. Um, if you have the possibility to speak to somebody, do it. Even if it's a community or somebody in your church, if you can't afford it, maybe even your neighbor. You know, find somebody who you can talk to objectively, not somebody who's going to magnify the issues or make you start wallowing in shame and all of that kind of stuff. Just constructive conversations. And then from there, you can start to look at healing modalities one by one, but this is something that takes time. So I think the first step is just to get clear, to understand the meaning of patience with yourself, especially. Start to move your body, eat well, sleep is really important as well. Try to minimize distractions, and then practice meditation. I think meditation is really, really good. Mastering your mind is really the secret to all of this, to manifestation, to healing, to everything. Once you can master your mind, you can master your emotions. And it all really is just about being able to sit still with just you. And meditation is also misunderstood. It's not about necessarily following instructions all the time about what somebody's saying. You can meditate in your house, just listening to a bird outside your window. You know, it's as
Yeah.
simple as that. It doesn't have to be guided meditations, or it's really just about concentrating on one thing, even if it's the sound of a fan.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Indeed. All right. So you mentioned that discussing your father is now an essential part of your story.
Hmm.
What role did he play in shaping your path, and how has your perception of him evolved over time?
Yeah. My father was, like I said, still is. My father is the most amazing man that I have ever seen, I think, in my life. But also, he's broken my heart so many times. And reconciling those two taught me the power of forgiveness. It taught me the importance of not taking everything personally, um, understanding what it means to separate yourself from something because it's not good for you, maybe in this moment, and acceptance, you know. Because as strong as he was, my father was also very weak. So, but he had his reasons. But that's not really for me to explain. You know, that's sort of, those are his things, those are his choices, those are paths that he took in his life. But being his daughter, I didn't feel protected. I didn't feel safe. I didn't feel heard. And it led to a lot of self-sabotage and things that I would have done differently had I felt loved by him. You know, I learned to love myself. You know, it sounds sad to say it, but I didn't feel loved by him in the way that I wanted to be loved, and it helped me to become stronger and to understand what it means to love myself, but also how to be a good mother to my children.
Yeah.
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 But above all, forgiveness, just moving on, letting things go and moving on. Yeah.
Yeah. That's really key, right? Letting it go.
Yeah.
Sometimes it takes a while to just come to the point where you can just let it go,
Yeah.
truly let it go. I've
Yeah.
heard I've heard before, like, um someone asked about bad memories, the
Yeah.
past. I said, "Well, stop feeding the past memories. Stop feeding yourself memories. The more you
Yeah.
feed it, the more it's gonna hang around like a lost cat. You feed a
Yeah.
lost cat, now it's not lost anymore."
Yeah. Yeah. What do they say? Energy goes where emotion flows, I
Yes,
think.
yes,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So the power of community. Healing is deeply personal, but it can also be communal. How important is it having a strong support system, and how can people cultivate one, um, even if they feel alone in their journey?
Yeah, that's a tough one. That's a tough one. Um, that's a really, really difficult one because, well, okay, the good thing is that now we have online communities. So this is something that I think you can do. Is try to connect with people online. There are lots of groups and things that you can connect with online, but in person, that's a lot more complicated. Because the reason I don't like to advocate online groups too much is because we have this really big problem in society where there's separation amongst us as human beings, and so it's a complicated one because it depends. I think that's an individual decision because it depends on people's beliefs. It depends on their cultural habits. For some people, I would say go to church. You're going to meet some amazing people. If you don't like your church, find one that you like.
Hmm.
you know, um, go to uh, go to events. Go to try to find things, new hobbies, meet new people. That just go to new places. Just get out. I think it's important to get out of your home, especially if you feel lonely. And in terms of healing, I think it's really, really useful to join yoga groups, groups where you do sports. You can meet some really interesting people there. And it's not only good for you physically, then it'll be good for you emotionally and mentally.
That's right.
Yeah. Retreats are also really good.
Nice. All right. So
Yeah.
looking into the future, you've come a long way, but what's next? Are there new projects, teachings, or spiritual frontiers you're excited to explore this year?
Yes. At the moment, I'm expanding my meditations. So I'm working really hard on that to come up with new meditations, which will be up on my site soon. And I'm also working on a series of children's books, so illustrated children's books that are um, the story of my life, basically. So from when I was a child until now, to sort of explain trauma to children and how to deal with it. Yeah.
Indeed, indeed, indeed.
Mhm.
All right. And if you could leave the audience with one unshakable truth about life, healing, and purpose, what would it be?
Uh, well, this is a quote. This is a quote. It's one of my favorite quotes. I think it's Abraham Lincoln. Yes, the best way to know your future is to create it.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, indeed, indeed. All
yeah.
right. Where can our listeners connect with you online and check out your practice?
Well, they can connect with me on Instagram. So that's Portia Chigariro Solingo on Instagram. My site, solingo.be. And they can listen to my meditations for free on Spotify, um, Apple Music, and YouTube Music. And I'm working on a Patreon account right now where I'm going to have a whole lot of new goodies and masterclasses and things for members coming soon.
All right, all right. And we will include those links in the description of this episode and in the show notes. So all you guys have to do, just click those links. For right now, we're going to play a meditation. So stay tuned.
Welcome to a 5-minute meditation for releasing anxiety. Begin by finding a comfortable position, either sitting or lying down. Close your eyes softly. Take a deep, slow breath in, and as you exhale, feel your body begin to relax, sinking into the support beneath you. Now shift your focus upwards, imagining yourself lying on a soft, grassy hill, gazing up at a vast, open sky. Feel the warmth of the sun on your skin, the gentle breeze whispering across your face. Take another deep breath, and as you exhale, imagine the sky clearing, becoming a canvas of pure, serene blue. Now imagine clouds beginning to form in the distance. These clouds represent your anxieties, your worries, and your stressful thoughts. Don't try to push them away. Simply observe them as they appear. Notice their shapes, their sizes, their densities. Some may be dark and stormy, others light and wispy. Perhaps one cloud is shaped like a deadline, another like a difficult conversation, another like a lingering fear. Acknowledge these clouds, these thoughts and feelings, all without judgment. They are simply passing through your mental sky. Repeat to yourself quietly, I see you, anxiety. I acknowledge your presence. Now imagine a gentle breeze beginning to stir. Feel it softly caressing your skin. This breeze represents your ability to let go, to release. As the breeze strengthens, notice the clouds beginning to move, to drift. Some are carried away quickly, others more slowly. Imagine the wind gently nudging each cloud, pushing it further and further away from you. With each exhale, visualize these clouds, these anxieties, being carried off into the distance and dissipating as they go. Feel the tension in your body easing as the clouds drift away, leaving behind a sense of lightness and spaciousness. You are not fighting the clouds. You are simply allowing the natural wind to carry them away. As the clouds continue to drift away, notice the vast expanse of clear blue sky that remains. Feel the sense of peace and openness that comes with releasing those anxious thoughts. Imagine the sunlight shining brightly through the clear sky, warming your body and your spirit. Feel the lightness, the freedom, the tranquility that comes with letting go. You are surrounded by peace, by calm, by the open expanse of the sky. Say to yourself quietly, I am at peace, I am free, I am safe. Take a few more deep, slow breaths, feeling the gentle breeze and the warmth of the sun. Bring your awareness back to your physical body, feeling the support of the ground beneath you. Gently wiggle your fingers and toes, and slowly move your head from side to side. When you feel ready, slowly open your eyes. Carry this sense of peace and lightness with you throughout your day. Remember, you can always return to this peaceful sky, this place of release, whenever you need to let go of anxiety. The sky is always there, and you are always capable of finding peace.
All right. Wonderful, wonderful meditation there. I hope that
Wow.
helped you guys. I hope that released some anxiety from your life, some worry, some anything that you're dealing with right now, and gave you some clarity. So thank you for that, Portia. That was lovely.
Thank you, Dini. Thank you for this amazing opportunity.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, guys. Wow, what an absolutely powerful conversation with Portia. From childhood loss to spiritual expansion, she's walked through the fire and emerged as a guide for others seeking light. We do have a few takeaways from this episode. One, that healing isn't linear, it's a journey of self discovery. Energy work and meditation are powerful tools for transformation. Manifestation is real. Like I said, I've done it. Portia's done it, and countless of others have done it. And if you really want to know if you're doing it right, I would suggest that you contact Portia and get further clarity. But it requires deep inner work. Community and self forgiveness are essential for healing. And if you want more Portia's wisdom, follow her journey, book a session, and tap into your own transformation. I will have those links in the description of this episode in the show notes. Be sure to support the show. Be sure to subscribe to Vigilantes Radio wherever you listen. Leave a rating and a review. Your feedback fuels us. Or you can buy me a coffee over at buymeacoffee.com/Vigilantes Radio. Be sure to share this episode with someone who needs to hear it. Maybe they're going through a tough time and just need some clarity to shake it off. And as Portia said, let it go. And until next time, keep growing, keep healing, and keep manifesting your best life. Thank you guys so much.